What is up, everybody? It's me, Duke Farley, back at it again here on Lost at Sea. And tonight I am unfortunately joined by the, I believe, fourth juror of Ascendance Live Season 2. I think eighth
Fourth sure.
placer,
Yep.
fourth juror, Thomas. Another one of my draft picks going home here, but
Yep.
I'm super excited to talk to you, Thomas. Thank you for coming on. What's been up? How have you been doing?
I've been doing well. Work has been kicking my ass. I actually don't know if like a lot of people know this, but Zoe is my in real life legal assistant now, ever since Ascendance. I hired her after meeting her. So her and I have had a busy last like month and a half. So Ascendance has kind of been keeping me, you know, engaged. And I'm currently in an org right now as well. So it's just been like a super busy last month and a half. So
A
yeah.
lot on your plate, it seems like. But am so happy that we get to talk about your journey here in Ascendance Alive. What made you come out and play this game? And like, did you know the format of Ascendance prior to jumping in here in season two?
So I have always been a fan of the org. But just like every other um org that's on Facebook, like, do you really follow it? Or, I wasn't like a staunch like VL person, but I did, I was on the Facebook. Nicole and I had played the Cube and the Hive together. So we like when we were in an alliance in one season together. So we talked about her game. I host my own live game. And so it just kind of was like I would support Nicole in supporting Ascendance. So I kind of knew a summary of the format based on what Nicole said. But when I applied, I went and watched all of season one, which a lot of them are my friends. So it was cool to like watch my friends also play Ascendance. But that was my only experience with Ascendance before I actually got to, play the in-person game in season two.
And so once you are introduced and you kind of come out to the cast, in that opening sequence, a couple of connections, I think only two, right? Yourself and Drew, and then also Eric, you mentioned that you had played a game with before. Was there anybody else that you knew, Thomas?
Yes, so I played like an org with Jake. But what's funny is Jake actually knew me more than Eric knew me, which I was fine with because to my belief, Eric and I like had a falling out in the life or in the org that we played together. And when I like approached him about it in a sentence, he was like, I don't even remember that. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like just pretend it never happened because we don't need that drama here at Ascendance. So I kind of knew Jake, kind of knew Eric, and I've known Drew for years. Like we played a live game together in 2014 and have like continuously stayed in touch. He played my live game. So I've known Drew for a very long time.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
So you had played a couple of live games prior to Ascendance Live then, right?
correct. Yeah, I've played about five of them.
Oh, cool. Oh, cool.
Mhm.
And you said that you host your own live game as well.
I do. Yes.
So what's it? So you have that experience of playing, and then you have the
Mhm.
experience of hosting. How did you use that in like? Was that a big like strength for you, like having that experience in this setting?
I do think it was a strength. I mean, in one of the episodes, Prod was very much like, okay, go have lunch in the pool house. Everybody start going to the pool house. And I was like, they really want us in that freaking pool house. So there's probably a power or some type of like advantage there. We need to go now because Kennedy just ran down there. And that's when I grabbed Erica. And that's when we walked into the pool house and we saw the one on the fridge. You can't really see me, but like I'm pretty sure Erica saw it, but like I like nudged to the fridge. Erica grabbed it, and my goal was to go distract Kennedy. But I just think I have like the mindset of prod as well because like I know what I would do in my games to get things found. If there's powers hidden or whatnot. So I would just thought it was so weird that they really wanted us to go to this pool house. Like they kept bringing, okay, everybody go down there, go down there, go down there, and I'm like, there has to be something there, and then there was. Little did I know it was there for a while, but I thought maybe that it had just been hidden there just for how bad they really want us to go down there.
Right. That's interesting. That's something that like I've never played a live game. I wouldn't have even thought of like to put one and two together there. Um, so Thomas, the opening sequence of the game, you seem pretty like you win a couple of team challenges. You go throughout the course of the game basically voting in the majority, right? Every time until you're ultimately eliminated. So was it that Keaton vote in the beginning of the game where it's the double elimination where you felt the most vulnerable throughout the game?
No, actually, I think that vote was when my game actually started picking up and I felt the most confident. Prior to the Keaton vote, like I was picked last the very first team round, and um, I'm a very, I feel like I'm a very extroverted person, but I'm also not the person who's like controlling the conversations or butting in or being really loud like some of the other people at the very beginning of the game, aka Kennedy. So I was kind of like reserved but really engaged. I loved getting to know everybody. So I was nervous in the beginning because I was like, okay, I'm picked last. I don't even think I was picked for like the first three teams because the one team I was on my own because we were the leftovers. So I was like, I don't feel really good on a social, strength. So I really went to work. I started building those one-on-ones. And I think once I started building those one-on-ones, I think the wine night really helped me build those one-on-ones with Taisha and Zoe. And then by the time the Keaton vote came about, I knew Keaton was throwing my name out, and I definitely felt like I had the relationships to stay. And that's when I was like, okay, now is the time for me to make the solid alliance that I need, and then start making the moves. So I think I was actually the most confident in the Keaton vote. I did not think I was going home.
And that was the first true blindside, like the episode title says.
Right.
Um, Up until this episode where you're eliminated, it seems like the alliance that you created was in control. So
Yeah.
you mentioned that coming together, uh, your prior relationship with Drew, as well as
Right.
this wine night where you kind of are able to talk um, openly with Taisha as well as Zoe. So those two coming together, is that the reason why that foursome was made when it was made?
Yeah. So you don't like obviously not everything is filmed, or if it is filmed, it's not shown. But like I'm surprised people didn't think the four was the four earlier because like did I ever leave Zoe, Drew, and Taisha's side? Probably not. Like I was always with them. I consider like Taisha and Zoe like two of my best friends in the game, and I had met them there, but I was always around them. And so by the time we got to the Keaton vote, I was like, okay, you guys are literally my friends. I really enjoy talking to you. We've been strategizing. Um, let's make this an actual thing. And so like we just locked it in. So yeah, that's pretty much, I think that answered your question.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so throughout the season, you also mentioned, the four as well as the six. Just to
Hmm.
clarify, the six would be including Jodie and Erica as well, right?
Yeah. So that formed kind of with on the Melissa vote. So um the edit was a little bit suspicious because it looked like Drew was doing a lot of that work, but I had to convince Drew to save Melissa. So I just want to throw that out there. But it was very much like me and Drew on the balcony, and I was like, we have to save Melissa. We have to do this. Drew's like, I agree with you. Where are the numbers? I said, these are the numbers, which was that six. Let's get them on board. We got them on board. Like the Melissa save was going to happen, and then Erica decided she didn't want to do it. Um, if you remember that episode, me, Erica, and Taisha were brought into a room with Melissa, and Melissa basically was like, you three are the people I trust the most. Like, let's turn this vote around. And I had the same pressure and concern as Erica did with if Melissa's here and Melissa's safe, like we're the people who they're going to target because they see us with Melissa. I got picked to go against Melissa in that like Tanagram challenge, so people were associating me with Melissa. But I didn't care. I was like, Melissa's an ally. I want to keep her. So when that six decided to keep Melissa, but then later rescinded on that agreement, that six also made an agreement that, okay, if Melissa goes, it's us six then. Like we have to stay close and stay together. And so we loosely worked together. I mean, I wouldn't even say loosely. I think we did work really closely together, but as the rounds kept going on, I definitely felt Erica and Jodie kind of drifting away. And probably for the betterment of their game, to be honest. And you can kind of see that in my confessionals where I was like, I want to get this power with Erica because I need to keep her closer. I'm picking Jodie first for my team so that he knows that he can trust me because I really wanted to just keep him as close as possible so we could really actually get to the final six.
And I want to talk more about those specific relationships and like your ultimate elimination. But before we get there, I want to ask you about your first captain win, um, where I believe it was the first one where the power is played by Marvin to not overthrow, but also he gets to pick a team as well. Did
Right.
that come to as a shock to you? And once that happened, what was your counter move? You kind of pick Carson first to go after Carson, right?
Yeah, so I always think about I don't really regret targeting Carson in that round. My goal when I was captain was I want to separate Marvin and Kennedy. Like one of them is going home now. When Marvin played his power, I thought he was overthrowing me. Like I thought he was taking my captainship. And then they clarified the rules to us, and then it was like Marvin gets to pick his team. And then at that moment I was like, okay, he can have Kennedy, that's fine. I'll take Carson. Because quickly in my mind, I was like, if Kennedy and Marvin stay in this game together, like they're still going to be a duo target. I'm of the mindset that like if you don't get rid of both of them back to back, like the other one's just gonna float. And I mean, Kennedy's still in the game, so obviously that's a theory. So I'm like, if I just like slowly eliminate their people like Paul and Carson and Hot Girl Chris, then they're just slowly going to be suffocated and not have options to really maneuver and go against us anymore. And so that's why I kind of threw out the splitting Marvin and Kennedy plan and just was like, I'll just Carson can be the backup over on this side, and then if they lose, Kennedy could still go home because at that point HGC kind of was like teetering on going against them as well. So it would have been Jodie, Erica, and I at least tying it, and then if we can get HGC on our side, then Kennedy could have gone home, but they could have also played their power, or the pendant. So who knows if they
Right.
actually went. But yeah.
So the next question that I have is you end up winning a second captainship, right? And you win
Mhm.
alongside Hot Girl Chris as well as Drew. And it's told
Mhm.
you that you guys aren't going to be safe, but you get to pick your teams to try to win and be safe at that point. So once you got that information, what was the plan for you in terms of picking your squad? And say you guys won that, I believe, right? So
Did
had you not won, what was the plan there?
I would have pushed for Kennedy to go home.
Yeah.
I don't know which team was like more ahead than the other in terms of the two that lost. So I don't know who we would have went to the elimination with. But Kennedy and Marvin would have been the target, but I always preferred Kennedy going over Marvin always. So she would have been my target. I mean, if you look in the episodes, I don't really strategize with Kennedy. I literally had no relationship with her at all. Like, and that's part of some of my regret playing too, because I played with my side of the house, and that's who I played with. That's it. And it was my game was very transparent to a lot of people. Like, these are the people I'm with, and if you're not with me, you're against me. So Kennedy would have been my target because I had no game relationship. Whereas Marvin and I at least were friendly. Like I literally did not talk to Kennedy in the game. So like Kennedy needed to go in my opinion.
Um, at this point in the game, like where you ultimately are eliminated, you guys are like final eight and you have, your four. Um,
Mm-hmm.
was it your plan from the get-go, or not the get-go, but when that formed to get the four to the final four, or did you have anybody in that four that you wanted out before that happened?
I would have gone to the final four with the four, and the reason being is I genuinely felt like they all would have taken me to final two. I was
Off.
always I was always number one. I think I was closest to Taisha out of the four, and I was Drew's number one. So I felt like bringing them to the four would have been the best position to get me to final two. I think they all thought they could beat me as well. Maybe not Zoe, because I think Zoe always said like I think it would be a close vote between the two of us if we went to final two, and I kind of do agree with that. But Taisha would have beat me for sure. Taisha would have beat me. Um, I think I could have beat Drew, and I think it would have been close between Zoe and I. But I think the three of them did think they could beat me. I think Drew like thought he could beat me, so I just felt like I would have gone to final two no matter what if I was in final four with them.
So say you had the choice of taking a person to final two, you would have chose Drew.
No, I I actually messaged you. I'm like, I'm doing my podcast and I want you to know before you hear it in the podcast that I wouldn't have taken you to final two. My ideal boot order in the four would have been Drew, Taisha, and then Zoe in final two.
So you would have preferred to go up against Zoe.
Yes. I mean Zoe was my number one, like my ride or die in the game. Um, I think we both had a different way to the end if we would have made it. And I think we both could have articulated our games very well. And I think it would have been a battle royale to see like who was going to win. But I would have been really happy if she beat me at the end of the game. So she was just like my number one, and I just would have gone with her. Yeah, I wouldn't even have hesitated.
Well, that's interesting to hear. I will be talking to Zoe in a little bit after this, so you guys can catch that exit interview on the channel as well. So let's get into your eventual elimination here.
Yeah.
How shocked were you to see the votes as they came? It was 5-3, so it
Mhm.
was yourself, Zoe, and Drew on your side. And then I guess you guys were anticipating Erica as well as Taisha, obviously in the four to vote alongside you. How
Right.
surprised were you in the moment?
So in the moment, I was not surprised because again, you don't really see everything in the episode. But when we were in line to vote, Erica and Taisha were still whispering, and I was like, "This is not." I knew I was the alternative vote. Like I knew it was going to be between HTC or I, but they were still like talking, and I'm like, I don't really feel good about that. Like I do not feel good that they're still, chit chatting. And so actually it was like me and then Taisha and Erica in the vote order. We were the last three to vote. And I walked out of the voting booth. They were still like, and I think Mark on prod was like, you guys can't talk. Um, and I walked past Taisha and I was like, you're not voting me, right? And she was like, no, 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 we're good, we're good. And I went and sat next to Zoe because we sat next together in the elimination. I was like, I'm going home. And she was like, really? And I'm like, yeah, it's me. So I got the votes. And so like I wasn't shocked, but I think I was still shocked because it was right before the elimination where I realized that it was gonna be me. Um, but by the time the votes were actually read, I was like, yeah, figured as much it was gonna be me.
Um, I know that at this point in the game, you aren't aware of Drew's pendant of power. There's
Mm.
one right after you're eliminated that he finds publicly, basically. Um, but had you known about Drew's pendant of power, would you have asked or at least like attempted to try to get that from him?
Yeah, 100%. I would have fought in any way, shape, or form um to for that. I probably would have sat down and said, like, I'm gonna be the vote, like, will you pay your pendant? I don't think he would have, to be honest.
That was my
Drew,
next question.
yeah, Drew's a very smart player and he's a self-preserver, and I wouldn't have been mad. Like I should have found the pendant on my own. Like I'm not somebody who like I don't think Marvin should have given Kennedy his. So I can't be mad at Drew for not giving me his for the same reason. I would have tried, absolutely. I would have been like, it's best for your game if I'm here. Like Taisha and Erica are flipping and you're gonna be a minority if I go. So you have to use it on me. So I wouldn't have been mad if he didn't. But yeah, I absolutely would have tried. I tried on the way out the door voting. I was like, Taisha, like, don't vote for me. And then she did anyway. So
So Taisha is in your alliance, but you now know like after the game watching these episodes, she also has another alliance with HGC and Jodely. Uh so walk me through the feelings in that moment between Erica, you know, not a part of the four, but Taisha, a part of your four. Is there one that makes you feel worse that they voted you out?
yeah. So I know that the oh my God, I get kind of emotional about it, like on my vote out, because I know that my vote out for Taisha was really hard. Um, like I said, you don't really see the relationships that form besides just the gameplay and the cameras. But Taisha and I got really personal there. Like we got really deep personal. We talked about life. There was a time when like we were both low in the game and we were just really there for each other. And then, and then Taisha has the conflicting Black Girl Magic alliance that's just deeper than the game and myself. Like that type of bond and that type of relationship and that kind of alliance is just so beyond the game that I can't be mad at her for, wanting to see three Black people succeed in Ascendance. So I know for a fact that that vote was really hard for her. And in fact, like we talked that night on my episode, just like how emotional it was for both of us because I felt hurt by Taisha because of just the personal bond we had. But at the same time, it's a game. So I was hurt, but I went to the jury house cheering for her. Like I was like, I still want her. I still want Zoe. I still want Ju to win. Like Taisha had my vote if she, you know, was going to final two. Like I was like, I'm gonna vote for her. So it's complicated, like at the end of the day, I'm like, I wouldn't have taken Taisha to final two. So good on her for getting me out. But I did, I wish that we could have stuck to the four and made it to the end. That would have been really cool, especially because you don't see it. Taisha and I actually made a final two in that round. So yeah. So after we made a final two, she eliminated me. So kind of savage.
Interesting strategy by Taisha. We'll
Mhm.
definitely love to talk to her once she's eliminated, or maybe a winner or runner up. We don't know.
Yeah.
So you're eliminated there 5-3, and then in this same episode, we see that Zoe comes right afterwards. You know, you've mentioned your bond with Zoe, now coworker. So was that difficult to see her follow you right after you?
Yeah, I was bummed, but I wasn't shocked. Like, people knew Zoe and I were a duo. I don't think it was very hidden. So when I was gone, I was like, it's going to be some variation of Drew, Zoe, Kennedy, maybe Erica. I was like, it's going to be some variation unless something happens or there's some power or some, flip. So seeing Zoe, I was bummed, but I was like also happy that I had a friend in jury. Not saying that the jury hated me, but like it was the next day. So like the jury has been hanging out for a while. I'm like, I'm there. They're kind of they have their jury inside jokes, and I'm just like, hi guys. So having Zoe come right after me was like, okay, I have a friend, like we're gonna laugh it off and talk about like what's still going on in the game because like we're the least removed than everybody else. So it was cool to have a friend um with me after she got out. I was bummed though.
Yeah. Um, it seems like you're entering a jury house at this point with a lot of people that you were directly responsible for eliminating. So I wanted to ask, I haven't really talked to anybody about the jury up until this point, but how was that like smoothing over or like airing things out? Was it
I
just all good?
it was fine. Like
Yeah.
literally everybody was all happy, go down. And like I said, we had a night since like the last people were eliminated. So I was the first one eliminated in the new day. So they got to sleep on it. They got to like have their time or whatever. Uh yeah, and the pre-jury's there too. We weren't allowed to really like pre-jury couldn't influence jury or really talk game with them to like clarify things. Like they did a really good job on keeping it separate. Like you can all hang out, but you can't talk about game stuff because pre-jury is gonna like you shouldn't have an influence over what the jury thinks or is gonna do. But what was funny is when I did go, my favorite story to tell, because I was the first one eliminated from the six. So I was like, hey everybody, there was an alliance of six. I got to be the person to break the news. I was like, these are the people that were in it. We almost saved Melissa. Everybody gasped. But like I don't think anybody knew that Melissa was close to staying. And Melissa was like, who was it? And I was like, it was Erica. And everybody was like, oh, because like they thought they were close. And it was like cool to be the person to like break the news. And I'm like, and then there was a 4 within the 6. And I thought that was the funnest part. Being like the first person from like who knew what was going on in that alliance to be eliminated and got to tell that story and that journey. So they were all shocked I walked in though. They were all shocked I walked into that house. So that made me feel good. They didn't think it was gonna be me.
Yeah. I mean, watching the episode, I was like, I think it might be Thomas here. But I could see why they would be shocked as well. Um, I wanted to, without revealing too much. I mean, this is tough because the full season hasn't come out yet. But without revealing too much, what are you you're a juror now at this point. What are you looking for in a finalist to sell to you for you to vote for them?
So I have ever since I played orgs in 2010, I have always been clear about who I'm voting for in Final Two, and that is my BFFL. So if you were loyal to me, you were a good ally to me, and you can articulate why you backstabbed me or got me out, like I'm voting for you. So I had a hierarchy when I got voted out of like who I was going to vote. Zoe being my number one, Zoe, Zoe, Drew, Taisha, and then probably like a variation of like Hot Girl Chris, everybody else. Kennedy was on the bottom of my list. I was like, I've no friendship with her, game relationship with her. Like she's not getting my vote. So that's how I vote as a juror, and I will be the sole person to vote for my best friend if they sucked at the game. Like I will just do it. So I reward loyalty with loyalty. So I'll vote you at the end of the day. Yeah.
Love that.
And I feel like I'm a very good talker and very good influencer, and I will put in work for you at the jury. Like I will do that. I will sit and talk to every single person to make sure that you get their vote at the end of the game.
It's
So
funny. I not to drop some names, but I talked to Jeff and Jordan, and when Jeff was talking about himself being in the jury for Jordan, he's the same. Obviously, they're connected through marriage, but he's the same way, like influencing people, trying to get them to vote for her.
yeah.
So it's so fun to hear that.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, Thomas, huge strategist throughout the course of the game. A lot of the strategy went through your alliance yourself. Is there anything up to this point that we haven't covered that you want to talk about regarding the game itself?
Yeah, I think that, I think I can really pinpoint my downfall. Um, and it wasn't really shown in the episode, but it was kind of brought up, was the night that we played that endurance competition, which by the way I threw. So wrong there. Don't ever throw a competition ever again. Thomas Ibarra, don't ever do that, especially an endurance comp that you can win. Like I went and I freaking held my hand over my head for 4 hours in double cross. Like I could have done that,
You think you would have outlasted Kennedy there in that one?
100%. I was gonna win that endurance comp. Like I can do endurance. So I threw it because right before Kennedy and Eric are like, you're getting really good at competitions and like we think you can win this one. And I was like, gosh dang, like I don't need that target on my back either. Like I'm just gonna not, I'm gonna last a while and then just throw it. So don't throw the competition. That night we also kind of agreed not to strategize, which was like weird, but we just didn't. But there was a little bit of strategy going on where Kennedy had like told everybody she was saving Drew with her safety. And Zoe and Taisha in like the room that we're all sleeping, Zoe had told Taisha, like, that's so good that Kennedy is saving Drew because that means like that's someone from our 4 being safe, right? And she's like, after like we make up half the votes, is what she said. Jodely overheard that, like at the doorway, And he told Hot Girl Chris, and Hot Girl Chris came to me and said, there's a 4-person alliance with Taisha, Drew, Zoe, and Kennedy. We should all stick together and like get one of them out. And I was like, yeah, 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 sure, sure, sure. And then never mentioned it again. Instead, I went to Zoe and Taisha, and then Taisha went into damage control with Hot Girl Chris and Jodie, and that's when they re-solidified their Black Girl Magic bond. So if I had not have said anything and just like rode with Hot Girl Chris and said like, yeah, let's do it, I could have maybe had a little bit more control over that vote. But instead, Taisha was the one that like really played that, you know, bad incident well, because she was able to get re-insulated with Jodie and Hot Girl Chris, kind of re-solidify Hot Girl Magic or Black Girl Magic, and then used it to, you know, get me out. So I played that very badly, and I will admit it.
It's so interesting, some of the like small like minor details that we don't like we don't catch that on camera, obviously, because it's like sleeping time or whatever.
Yeah,
um
I mean, they did mention it in the episode. They do mention it. I think Zoe and Drew talk about it, where they were like, and I had a confessional about it, where they're like, Jodie heard that. So at that point, Jodie was like done. Like he was done with the six, because as he should have been, So that's why we knew we didn't have Jodie's vote, because that wasn't really well explained. But like I didn't even try to get Jodie's vote because I like knew he was after some variation of like who he perceived to be the four. And Jodie was really smart too, because he was like, Thomas is definitely in with them. Like Hawkeye Cross, like, don't think that he's not. So that round was just played really bad by me. I didn't like use my information wisely. I just went to Zoe and Taisha and then just never brought it up again, when I could have really like tried to convince Hako Chris and maybe even Jodie that like one of them needed to go, and then we could have just figured out a way to like, you know, turn it on to Hako Chris and get him out.
yeah, maybe like maneuver their votes in a different way or something.
Right, right.
um I've been asking this to everybody. This is usually the last question I ask everybody. Thomas, what was your favorite part of the entire experience, whether it be game or outside of game?
I'm gonna be cliche and like say just meeting the people. Like I know that's pretty much everybody's answer, but honestly, like I have made deep friendships and connections. I've played 5 live games. I've always come out with a friend from that, Drew being one of them, like from years ago, 2014. Actually, I didn't like Drew even as a person at that time. So it's just funny. Our relationship has evolved very greatly. Um, but just the friends, like Zoe's my legal assistant now. She came back to Portland with like, I hate my job. I don't, and I'm like, I need a legal assistant. Let's hire you. Let's get you, in a good place. And it's just like, that kind of love and support for each other, coming out of a live game is just so cool. And it's just neat to see like a community having each other's back and, just loving one another. So I will always just be grateful for Ascendance for giving me that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Thomas, thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining me tonight on Lost at Sea. Really, really enjoyed watching you this season. Super, super great with the strategy. Great confessionals. I enjoyed you a lot on this season, and I am interested to see how things shake out. You obviously are not done in this game. You have. I hope they do a jury roundtable, because that was electric last year, and you will have a vote to decide who wins this game. So, with that being
I
said,
will I will say before we go that
before we
if
go,
there is a jury roundtable, if there is a jury roundtable, you bet I'm gonna try to control that shit. Just like I try to control the game.
always look forward to that. So, hopefully, we get to see that in one of the episodes. And yeah, thank you so much, Thomas, for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.